I'm Dr. Christy Taylor, career and executive coach and founder of Work Solutions LLC and Work Global News Magazine. And I'm excited to bring you another feature for our Changemaker series. Today we're featuring Mr. Earl Morrison. Earl is a retired police chief and former assistant director of the Council on Law Enforcement Education and Training. He has over 29 years of leadership experience, and Earl understands how toxic environments can hinder growth. He also focuses on how poor communication, lack of teamwork, and negative mindsets can derail success. But by taking proactive steps, leaders can drive transformation. Earl is going to be one of our featured speakers at our Prescription for Career Success Summit. Earl, I'm so excited to have you on. I'm going to turn it over to you, let you introduce yourself, and then we're going to jump right into the interview.
Thank you. I'm glad to be part of this program. My wife, Penny, and I started Leading and Learning with Character 7 years ago now. Out of the desire to just bring our passion for leadership and mentoring. As you stated, I recently retired. I'm not really retired, but you know, it's one of those that you want to, but you got 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And so I fill that gap with the passion for leading and developing other people, which is part of the reason I'm excited to be part of this program.
Yeah, I'm really so excited to have you. I always have a great, as a service member myself, I always have a tremendous amount of respect for anybody who serves in any capacity. And so I understand the leadership that you have, especially as serving as the chief of police and being somebody who has served your community. So let's talk a little bit about your career. Your leadership journey, as we pointed out, it spans over 29 years. And so what really inspired you really to begin this path? You said this is something that you and your wife do together. But how did your early experiences in law enforcement really shape your leadership philosophy?
Sure. Yeah. When I graduated high school, I wanted to go into law enforcement. Wanted to go to college. And so I went with my rich Uncle Sam, who paved the way for me. So I spent 3 years in the U.S. Army. I was a field medic. I had to wait too long to be what I wanted to be, was law enforcement. So when I came out, you know, you're still looking for that passion and pursuing that. And so I actually started off working in the prison system. And I worked there for 6 years and realized that wasn't quite what I wanted. And so I went back to school, got my degree in criminal justice. And I started, you know, that path of law enforcement. And, you know, we get into any service aspect because we want to make a difference. Mm-hmm. And we feel like, you know, it's not about the pay. It's not about the glory. It's about making a difference in people's lives. And so that's what really led me into the law enforcement side of things. And then as I got into that and I wanted to improve our environment internally and externally, that's where the leadership development and the mentoring passion really started coming into play. Is I wanted to change some of the negativity that I saw as opposed to just being part of it all the time.
Well, you know, founding, leading, and learning with character is such just a meaningful accomplishment because, again, I understand as somebody who is committed to service myself. When I started Work Solutions, people just get confused about the name because I put the X in there, right? And when I started Work Solutions, WRXK, but it's pronounced work. But the RX was really because we were healthcare focused. And in 2022, I made it the transition to be more impactful to support anybody who's really doing some type of impact work, right? And so I understand what it's like. We always say here at Work Solutions, we are the prescription for change. But you yourself, Earl, the work that you're doing is the prescription for change as well. When you founded Leading and Learning with Character, it is such a meaningful accomplishment. What was like that defining moment that led you to create this platform? And what really makes it a unique approach to leadership development?
So like many things, you know, some of our ideas and things come out of trying to learn lessons. Mm-hmm. And so I realized my dream in the police world. I became a chief of police. And about 2.5 years in, my political landscape changed. As anybody that's dealt with politics knows that can happen. Mm-hmm. And you can be replaced and it's really nothing you did wrong. Yep. But for me, one of the things that I needed to understand is what was I supposed to learn? Being a Christian and being, you know, God-centered and focused, you know, what was he trying to teach me? And then how was I going to help someone else down the road? And so from that, I wrote my first book, Leadership Lessons Learned, because I wanted to understand that. And so as I'm writing that and we're kind of developing that and while searching for my next job, we were like, you know, a lot of people are not going to read a book. You know, you've got people that just won't pick up a hard copy. You know, in this digital age, everybody wants an ebook or they want something else. And so I was like, how can I do that? And so we created Leading and Learning with Character so I could take the lessons from that book, turn them into curriculum and do them into classes so that I could present them as classes that may tie somebody back to actually read the book. So that's how we were birthed back in 2017, just out of that desire to learn something from what some people would call a failure or a mistake, so that I could help myself, but also help other people moving forward.
I mean, that's what really the experience is all about. Nobody's career is going to always just be straight up, right? I mean, we experience forks in the road. I mean, right now I'm a career coach in that transition. It makes it easier for me because I'm a career coach, but it also makes it a lot easier for me to help and understand where people are coming from. Now, Earl, I said, okay, we have our list of questions, but I have to backtrack a little because especially with you being a fellow service member, I have to also ask you, what lessons did your experience in the Army teach you that you also brought into your career, whether you're serving as police chief or even just with the work that you do now?
The biggest thing that I take away way early on from basic training all the way through is teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
That we have a lot of individuals that go into the place, and they teach you to become one. And so that's one of the things that I tried to keep with me as I move forward. Now, you know as well as I do, you've been part of teams. Sometimes that's easier than other times because of the people you have on your team that make it a little more difficult. But that's the biggest thing, is that teamwork aspect and understanding the value that everybody brings. I think if we could get better at bringing that aspect of what the military teaches across the board, we might have some less toxic and negative environments in some of the places that we have.
Yeah, through Work Solutions, we really focus on, building resilient work environments, which is what a lot of your work focuses on as well. And a lot of what I've learned in the military, I bring that with me. It keeps me logical, it keeps me grounded. But also, I feel like, and you may feel the same way, probably even serving in the police force, that there's a level of camaraderie that doesn't exist outside that space that most people would not understand. When I got out, I thought I was done, and it was so hard for me to stay out. And that's probably why you still have one leg in, one leg out, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I ended up coming back, and I'm like, civilians just don't understand. Now, you have held such a variety of leadership roles, like from patrol sergeant to chief of police. We just talked about your military experience. What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them while staying true to your values?
The biggest one across the board that fit every one of those levels is that, I struggled with this piece that some people will get. Some people will probably get mad at me because I say it, but it's okay because I'm going to say it anyway. I struggle when I'm part of a program that's supposed to be holding people accountable. I'm not holding myself accountable. Now, that doesn't mean I'm supposed to be perfect, but it does mean that I'm supposed to be above the standard of what I'm holding everybody else to. And I think across the world in some of our service entities, especially police world, and I believe even in the military to some degree, that we have this problem that, when we reach a certain level, policies and procedures and the rules don't matter about us. It's everyone else. And so that was one of the biggest struggles across the board, was the accountability piece, and then the lack of integrity and maintaining the character to do the right thing. And that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of good people in all those fields, but I think it's one of those areas for me that made this even more of a mission of mine, is to try to change that concept and understand that, if I don't like people saying that I can't hold myself accountable, then I should do something about that. And for me, setting the example is huge. I can't say one thing and go do something else. We can't play that old game as do as I say, not as I do, that some people like to play. And so that's the biggest thing, is that struggle of maintaining the integrity and the character and setting the right example and being accountable for what you think, say, and do.
Yeah, because people are always going to be looking at you. And I think that's some part of leadership, right? I mean, I've had people, even with me in the military, I could just be sitting there being quiet. And I've just had airmen walk up to me and go, hey, I really just appreciate what you do. Or there, because people are always looking at you and how you respond and how you behave or manage a situation from a leadership perspective. So 100% agreed with you. And I would even say that's even in the corporate sector too, just working in and out, right? Because you get to a certain, there's a level of comfortability with, I earned this position, so I can take some leeways, right? So I'm really glad. And that's why I really love the name of your business, because it's straightforward. I see, I'll see you, as we have been promoting this event, I've seen you guys actively liking the posts that we post on Work Solutions. And I'm always like, leading and learning with character. I'm like, that is so straightforward. I was going to ask, do you happen to have a copy of your book at your desk where you can hold it up, or the book that you wrote? I definitely want people to see that.
This is the first one.
Leadership Lessons Learned.
I actually have 4.
Okay.
That's the first one.
Mentoring for
This is
life.
the
Okay.
second one. All right. This is the third one.
Jumpstart your leadership and spiritual growth.
All
Okay.
right. And this is the most recent one. We just published this one.
Closing the gap by building bridges for organizational and personal success. We're gonna come back to that in just a moment. Yeah, I was like I said, that's we gotta make sure we plug your books, right? Listen, guys, if you tuning in and you listening to this, no matter what day, what time, when people have committed their life to a life of service, that always shows right there. There's some level of character, right? And just like anybody who is experiencing any ups and downs in their career, uh, those of us who work in the service industry, this is heart-centered work. There's a lot that can be learned from individuals who have committed to a life of service because, as Earl pointed out, there's not going to be high pay. It's going to be long hours, right? And you're going to be dealing with really the ins and outs of political environments, politics, because you're subject to that, but you can't always say anything, right? So when that happens, you have to make sure you're relying on your own care to continue with that leadership. So there's a lot of lessons that can be taken away from his 30 years of experience. I'm gonna say 30 years because you still got one foot in, right? Now I just asked you about your books, and we're gonna come back to those because you really focus on character-driven leadership. It's really compelling to me, and that's why I just kind of made that statement, right? Because I just think that sometimes people think that folks jump into stuff. When you jump into something like, okay, I'm going to be a police or a teacher, or even just to serve, right? That is an active, conscious decision that you're making to take another route or another path when you probably could have worked in corporate America and made a few $100,000 a year. You know what I mean? So it's a decision that somebody makes. So I want you to share an example of where your approach to character-driven leadership really created a positive transformation within a team or an organization.
Sure. So I was part of a organization that when I got there, it was very toxic. I mean, you could walk. Crazy thing is, if you've ever been in a toxic environment, you know what I'm talking about when I say this. You could walk in and feel the atmosphere, and it just kind of sucked the life out of anybody that walked in. And so, we went through some transformations and some issues took place, and we kind of imploded on ourselves. Lost a lot of our top leadership, and so I was asked to step in and provide some leadership. It wasn't what I came there to do, but it was what I had the ability to do. And so one of the things is that we didn't respect anybody. We talk bad about each other. I mean, it's like a toxic environment. Everybody's negative. Everybody blames everybody else. And so one of the things for me is that, brought everybody together. I was like, look, how about if we have a goal, and we were about to start a new year. And so I was like, what if we just started off and said that we want to have respect? Because is there anybody out there that doesn't want respect? I think if the answer to that is no, then there's a problem with that individual, because I think most of us out there would say we would like to be respected. And the reality of that is that once we understand that piece, once I understand that I want to be respected, then I understand that if I want that, I have to also respect other people. Mm. And so what we did was we taught each other what the other one did and the value that they brought to the table. And the only way that we were going to get respect externally was to build it internally. It's kind of like the same way. If you look at yourself in the mirror and you don't respect the choices and the decisions you make, then you're not going to lead anybody else well. So you have to lead yourself first well. Okay. Not going to be perfect, but you have to lead yourself first, right? And then you can lead other people better. And so what we did was we created that mindset, and we stuck to it, and we were very intentional about talking to each other, communicating, understanding what each other brought to the table, and understanding the value in building the teamwork, and knowing that if one person doesn't do what they're supposed to do, then it affects everybody else. And so there's value in that. And so it was a great transformation. It changed the mindset internally and externally. I think there's a lot of those principles that our organization still uses today. And so, for me, it's just, you got to be intentional and you got to be disciplined when you want to make that transformation.
Now, does your organization just focus on working with law enforcement entities, or like, who do you guys work with? Is it a general audience of, any company that needs your services? Tell me a little bit about that.
So, yeah, here's the thing. Everybody always thinks, because my background has been 30 years law enforcement, that it's only geared toward them. It is not. That's just where my experience comes from, because it's where I've spent most of my time. But I've had actually other city municipality leaders within. I've had city administrators. I've had chiefs of police. I've had security people. I've had public works. I've had all sorts of people in there. Actually, have done groups at casinos because they wanted training for their people. So we will talk to anybody and everybody, and sometimes we'll realize maybe it's not the right fit. But if you talk to us, that's one of the things that we can help you understand is our program a good fit for your organization, or would you need to go somewhere else? And so we get that misnomer that it's just law enforcement, but it's not. It works for everybody. We've had tons of different people within our classes.
Yeah, and I also just want to point out something that you said in the example, that even those of us who work in service-oriented environments, just because we committed our life to service, I mean, when we go to work every day, it's kumbaya, right? And
exactly.
To your point, when you and I wrote this in one of the books that I published previously, but when I'm talking about in organizations, one of the bottlenecks of change is if you are going to implement something, there's a process called decategorization, meaning that you got to weed out all of this stuff that's making your organization toxic. So the example you provided, where you just said, hey, can we show each other some simple respect, and you put some guidelines and parameters in place, like how we're going to do that. And a lot of that through was establishing the expectation and facilitated conversation and everybody getting to know one another to help understand each other's job better. That's that process of decategorization, because you're cleaning everything out and you're setting the standard, right? Now I want to go back to your books, right? Because I kind of jumped ahead of myself a little bit. But, you've written 4 books. They're all leadership focused. And I just want to give you some time you can pick them back up if you want to. But what really, you talked about, yes, you wrote the books, they're there, but you understood that not everybody's going to read a book. You're going to have to take it to the streets, basically. You had to take it to a classroom of setting where you can really support people, right? So what role really has writing played in your journey, and which lessons from your books resonate with your audience most deeply? And please feel free to hold those books up again and talk about the lessons.
So the biggest thing is that this one, the very first one, people understand, right? It was a healing process for me because I just left my dream job before I wanted to. I wasn't finished, and it really wasn't a choice. It was the political landscape change. And so again, trying to understand what I needed to learn from that. And part of that is that learning from your mistakes, okay, because we got to keep moving forward. We talk about never giving up. We talk about there's no idle conversation. So understanding the importance of your influence, that you've got to be careful what you say and how you say it when you say it. We talk about building a strong foundation. So there's tons of things in there. One of the biggest ones for me, actually, there's 2. One is the accountability aspect, because I think we struggle with that across the board. I don't care where we're at. And the other one is that your attitude is your responsibility. You see, a lot of times we tend to want to blame that on everybody else and all the negativity, and we don't realize that most of the stuff and where we're at is because of choices that we've made. And so we talk a lot about that in one of those classes. And then, as I struggled through that first time, I got another police job after 11 months. And about 7 months after I was there, I didn't have that job again either. And really not because of anything I didn't do properly. It was just that they weren't ready for the change aspect. And anybody knows that if you've gone through a real change, it gets hard before it gets better. Because like you said, you've got to break everything down first to get to that underlying thing and weed out what needs to be weeded out, right? Mm-hmm. And so after doing that, and the other piece was I had the passion for mentoring. And so I wanted to come back for me with something on a little more positive track of not necessarily healing, but my passion. And how do you get people to understand is that one of the biggest issues that we have is that we don't give people the expectation. And so what better way to give people the expectation in your organization than a mentoring program as soon as they walk in the door, and then if they want to promote and go down the road. So that's where the second one came in. And then the third one is kind of putting both of those together, is that all those lessons and then some other things as I was developing those classes, it was like, there's always the aspect of how do you do that? How do you keep going? And for me, without my faith, without God being in control, I don't have that. And so we always try to separate the organization and the leadership here and the spiritual thing here. and I still get that because I still teach in the secular world, and I understand that. But you can't really separate the two if you're doing it the way it should be done. If you're one of those people that believes that and lives that, right? And so I wrote that one, and then this last one, this one right here. As I've been teaching, and some of the classes that I teach are supervising with purpose, jumpstart your leadership growth, the mentor mindset, overcoming challenge within your team. There's several others. Your attitude, your responsibility. What I was learning is that when we had the younger generation, we had the older generation, we weren't finding ways to close the gap. The older folks are blaming the younger folks and vice versa. And you know, the reality of it is that we need to find the value in what everybody brings to the table, because finding the value closes the gap. When we're pointing fingers and blaming, it opens it up. And so as I was teaching and understanding that, you know, I got some topics that I was like, okay, what are some things that we struggle with? And the first one in my book is ego. Anybody out there ever struggle with ego? If you've been in any kind of leadership capacity, at some point in time, you probably struggle a little bit with your ego. Not that you meant to. Some people do, but you know, how do you get that back? How do you close that? And then we talk about foundation, character, leadership, mental health, and then even in the book, I talk about spiritual gaps. And so it's just kind of teaching us how to value each other without all the junk that we have out there, that we can be better together in our organizations, in our teams, if we value each other. We understand that what we should be doing is closing that gap instead of building it, making it bigger.
That was so good. I mean, you got me thinking about 1,000 topics. I definitely would love for you. I mean, look, not only is Earl going to be a part of our Prescription for Success Summit, but we're also doing a book collaboration. But I would even love for you to just come back and do an article for the magazine outside of what we're doing today, because so much, especially when you talk about the topic of egoism, I can think about 1,000 things, even from a negative side of like feeling like, well, I have, because this is me personally, right? Well, I have all of these degrees in education. I've done this. I should be here, here, and here. But to your point, when you're, and you know, I don't run my business as like a, you know, anything related to religion, but it's just like if that's the root of what a person does. So for me, if like I'm rooted in Christ, right? I say at the end of the day, my egoism leads me here of saying this is where I should be, right? But then I have to center myself and be like, this is what you got me doing. I was like, you know, I was kind of faced that when it was like I had to go get a teaching license, but I'm like, Lord, I done all of this to go here, but you know, I don't know what's next. So egoism can go two ways, right? So I want to, as we begin to wrap up this interview, I just want you to spend, you know, 30 seconds here giving us a highlight of what you're going to be talking about at the Prescription for Career Success Conference.
Sure. So I'm going to be talking mainly about the mentoring for life aspect and the mentor mindset. And in it, again, as I had mentioned, we talk about learning from your mistakes. We talk about, you know, the accountability aspect, and it's just turning that where, honestly, at the end of the day, we're trying to get people to understand is that the way forward and better is to learn from the mistakes and the failures that you've had. Because if somebody slaps a label on you and you start believing it, you become that. That's okay, but we gotta find ways past that, to not be the victim through choices and the negativity, and just understand that we can make those positive changes. We just got to be intentional. We've got to be disciplined to go out there and do it, because anything that we do that we like, we've made it a priority, and anything that we're good at is because we've decided that we want to get good at that or even get better at it. And so that's what we're going to be talking about, just the mentor aspect of it and that mentor mindset, and how to be a mentor, but also, you know, maybe something in there about being mentored as well, and how that can change your life and your outlook on life.
Well, really looking forward to that. Now, I got to ask you two last questions. So one is I always ask for you to give some type of advice. So as someone who's navigated high pressure environments with complex challenges, like what is like just one piece of advice you would give to any aspiring leader? And then, of course, the second question, you kind of throw it in there. Where can people find you and contact you? And of course, we're going to have all Earl's information here in the description for this chat. I mean, for this interview. But yeah, what advice do you want to wrap up with and provide the listeners to, and then how can people contact you?
So the last thing, you know, if you're in that kind of environment, you're the decision maker. Make decisions. Learn from it if you mess it up. Okay, but make them based on what the desired outcome is. Get influence, get feedback if you can. And like I tell people, there's sometimes when I can, there's sometimes when I can't. And so make decisions and stick with them. If they're wrong, learn from them. If they're good, make them better next time. You can find us at earlmorrison.com. I'm also on LinkedIn under Earl Morrison, Leading and Learning with Character. I'm on Facebook, Leading and Learning with Character. Reach out. We'd be happy to have a conversation with you. Just follow us. We'd like to put good stuff out there, just to make things better for you, to be a resource to encourage you to not give up, to keep going, and to constantly be in there evaluating yourself to be better, and to be intentional and be disciplined about being a better leader.
Oh, thank you so much. It really has been a pleasure to interview. I have the utmost respect, like I said, for anybody who has committed to a life of service. And not only that, you're continuing to serve, even though you got one foot in, one foot out. You're probably ready to just retire and go fishing, but you are committed to continuing to make a difference. Guys, we're so excited to have Earl as part of our speakers, as a part of our book collaboration. And we're going to make sure that we put all of his contact information in the description box, as well as the coupon code for the Prescription for Career Success Summit. Tickets are free, VIP pass are $55, and we'll have a special coupon code for Earl. Again, thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.